Put down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. Get ready for 60 minutes of wall-to-wall photography, including photo news, tips, and your photography questions in real time, with answers from your host, Olympus Visionary Joe Edelman.
Hey, that's me. How you doing, gang? Thanks for joining me for another live episode of TogChat. I'm your host, Joe Edelman. And as always, I'm going to spend the next, well, not as always, tonight, 60 minutes with you talking about all things photography, because my mission is to help photographers like you to develop a solid understanding of the hows and whys behind great photography. So look, as always, please guys, it really doesn't hurt and it's really not that hard. Little thumbs up underneath that video would be great. And tell your photography friends that we are streaming live on YouTube right now. You can go ahead and you can hit that little share button that is right underneath the video, like right down there somewhere, okay? Or you can go ahead and you can share this link that I am pasting into the chat window right now. It is tog.chat, whoops, we're not ready for that, tog.chat/live, okay? So please, let people know we're here. Share the passion, right? And of course, as always, some of you have already been doing it. Check in. Let me know where you're from. Let me know you're here. Lynn is here from New York. I got Russ in New Zealand. I got T. Aroha in New Zealand also. Wow, we got a bunch of people from down under. Good morning tomorrow for you folks. Darklink is here from El Paso. Michael from South Africa. I got Mark in Canada. Alan in Denmark. Steve is back from Michigan, but not in Michigan. Seriously, awesome, gang. Thank you so much for spending a Wednesday evening with me. So, right off the top, let me let you know, I'm a wimp. I'm only going to do 60 minutes tonight. We're doing 1 hour, like a legit 1 hour. I have got to finish packing. I have to get in a car and drive for like 6 hours tomorrow. I'm headed to Cleveland for the Pixel Photo Fest. And gang, there's still time to register. So in fact, here, let me switch the screen over here so that you guys can see, because you can also get trade show passes. So it's kind of like the big shows with Photo Plus and WPPI. If you can't make it for all the educational events, you can also get trade show passes. So it's not too late to register. In fact, I'll put the link in here. And I got to tell you, seriously, if you are anywhere in the Northeast or the Midwest part of the country and you can make it to Cleveland this weekend, you don't want to miss this. You really don't. This is going to be an amazing event. 16 incredible instructors. I get to present the keynote. You can get a 3-day pass. You can get a 1-day pass. And they also have trade show only passes available. So check out pixelfest.com. You can get all the details there. You can also get the schedule, all the talks. I'm going to be doing 3 talks in addition to the keynote. I'll be showing off some of my fun fashion portraiture stuff where we're going to soak a camera and we'll do some live composite. I'm going to be doing a natural light photo walk Saturday evening, and Sunday morning we're going to do a talk all about lighting wizardry and really break down those 3 horrible words, the inverse square law, and talk about modifiers and working with gels and all that kind of stuff. So should be a good time. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a pretty crazy and really busy weekend, but I hope to see a lot of you there. So I want to dig right in. Since I'm only spending 60 minutes with you, let's get going here, okay? I had a couple questions come in on my Facebook group, so we'll start with those. The first one I got here is from Eric. I'm still having trouble mixing ambient and flash. I'm trying to catch a good amount of ambient light around the subject and add flash to fill, but even looking at what looks good in my camera, my shots are still too dark. Advice, and yes, I need more practice. So, of course, practice is important, but Eric, obviously without seeing the images, that's a little tough. Now, Eric, I know that you are a member of Tog Knowledge, and for those of you that are not familiar with Tog Knowledge is my learning community where you have the ability to join our Friday night Zoom chats, to interact with me directly, a lot of cool little benefits there. You can find that at togknowledge.com. The link is up there, right there, top of the screen. But Eric, basically what you want to be doing, and there's 2 pieces to the answer I want to give you. Number 1, always meter and set your ambient light first. That way it's easy to decide, do I want the ambient light at the same exposure level as my subject? Do I want the ambient light slightly underexposed? What do I want? Usually when you're kind of mixing the flash and the ambient, you want to have your subject pop just a little bit. So the way you're going to do that is slightly underexpose the ambient, right? That's step one. Now what concerns me is you're saying that it looks good in camera, but yet your shots are still too dark. Well, that leads me to believe that there's some issues going on, meaning either you have potentially brightened your LCD or your EVF at some point on your camera, so it's kind of giving you false feedback, telling you your exposure is better than it actually is, or you may have a calibration issue with your computer. But that's the piece that I'm really kind of latching on. If you're saying what you're doing by balancing the ambient and the flash looks good in camera, and then when you go to the computer, it's a problem. It sounds to me like the issue is either you've made adjustments to the LCD or EVF in your camera, where you've brightened it, so that's throwing things off, or you've got to look at the calibration of your computer and monitor. That's the stuff that I would encourage you to start with. And then obviously we won't be doing our Zoom chat this Friday night because I'll be in Cleveland teaching. But next week when I'm back, definitely make sure that you have some images for me to look at. Good stuff, bad stuff, all of it, so that we can break it down for you, and we'll help you troubleshoot that. Okay? All right, the next one I've got here, whoops, it would help if I hit the right button to show it to you, wouldn't it? There we go. This is from Maddie Freer. I volunteered to do some photography for some charity events around the UK, and that'll be happening later in this year, and also the start of next year. I'll be doing the usual event stuff and a few pictures of the performers. He also kind of wants to do some portrait setups, but he needs to be super lightweight as he'll be flying to some of the shows as well as using his car. Obviously, the same kit has got to work for both, and so that he has some consistency. So, gosh, it's a shame because I've got my travel stuff at home. It's like packed and ready to go, Maddie. But if you remind me next Wednesday for TogChat, I will open it up and show you what I travel with. I travel with a Pelican Air case. They're a little more expensive, but I picked the Air case because I frequently have to check them on airplanes. And in my Pelican Air case, I've got a full studio pack, everything except for a posing stool and a background, right? So I've got 4 strobes, the Godox 8200s. I carry both heads for them, both the Fresnel heads and the bare bulbs. I carry a ton of gels. I carry 4 compact light stands. I carry spare batteries. I actually also carry spare triggers. So when I'm traveling and teaching, I have a Godox trigger for every camera brand that's out there, so that if it's an experiential that I'm teaching, everyone is able to, put a transmitter on their camera and participate. So I carry a ton of stuff in it. But realistically, what you're describing, Maddie, is a situation where you're going to want to use speed lights or smaller pocket flashes like the Godox 8200s. And honestly, what I would do, and this, by the way, this suggestion, folks, this applies to every aspect of your photography, right? It helps. For me, it's a little bit easier because I'm kind of really OCD, right? Things need to be organized. I like the control. That's part of why I'm a studio shooter, right? Because in the studio, I have complete control. So the reason why I have my case set up the way that I do is basically from one trip to the next, I don't have to unpack it. I don't have to mess with it. I just charge my batteries. That's it. Now, trust me, gang, I get it. A lot of you can't afford to have like 2 sets of lighting gear. I completely understand that, right? But if you, like in the case of mine, I have the diced foam cube inserts. So basically the case is customized. So even if you have to take your gear out when you're not traveling, when it comes time to travel, you've got all the slots for it. It's really easy. So when you look at the case, if a slot's open, well, you're missing something in the case and you need to put that piece in. That's very doable, but you want a system. You want a packing system so that basically anytime you grab that case, you're good to go. So literally, my preparation for Cleveland with regards to that case, all I did this afternoon was I opened it, made sure everything was where it was, made sure that I wasn't sloppy while I was in Berkeley, California last weekend when I packed it, and said, yep, it's good. And I wasn't even worried about the batteries because the batteries didn't get a whole lot of use. So my normal routine is when I get to the hotel tomorrow in Cleveland, I will go ahead and plug in battery chargers for the Kodak strobes, and I'll charge them in the hotel room because I won't need to use them until Friday, like at 4 o'clock. So I'll have plenty of time to top off the batteries, right? But that's really the key. I mean, you know, the kind of stuff you're talking about doing, Maddie, you could do with speedlights. You could do with umbrellas, you know, even small collapsible umbrellas. That way you don't need a big case. If you're going to start using soft boxes or beauty dishes or collapsible beauty dishes, you know, you're going to need bigger cases, etc. So I would look at going kind of in that direction. All right. Next up here from Joel. Joey did a great job making me Olympus curious. There's my phrase. And you know what's the cool part? Olympus is using that in their marketing now. I'm just saying, it's kind of neat. You mentioned a group or a forum that helped you with technical Olympus questions when you switched. Could you please share the link to them? You know what? I could. Let me just switch over here. I'll show you real quick. It's called the Olympus OMD Education Group, okay? And I should probably set this up so you guys can actually see the web page. There we go. That's a little bit better, isn't it? Okay. So Kelvin, thank you so much for the super chat, man. I appreciate it. But let me, Joel, get you the link here. I'm going to put it in the chat window. There you go. Highly recommend this group. It is extremely well moderated. People are very well behaved, very respectful. The usual Facebook group BS is not tolerated, and it's not a picture posting group. So, you know, I will say this, because I realize a lot of you are not Olympus users, so please, I'm not trying to make this an Olympus thing, but find a group like this. So if you're a Nikon user, find a Nikon group like this. Sony, find a Sony group, whatever, but a group that is really just about straight up, stripped down knowledge. I'm having a problem finding this setting. I don't understand how to make my camera do this. Can you tell me if there is a gadget that will do this and work with my camera? Those kinds of things, right? That's what this group is for. It's outstanding. And believe me, these groups exist. I'm sorry, I don't have a recommendation for you for which is the best one for Nikon or which is the best one for Canon or Sony. But I will tell you this. Number one, if you happen to know of such a group, please share it with me, maybe via Facebook Messenger, because I will gladly check it out. And indeed, if it works as cleanly as this group, I would love to be able to recommend it. Okay, you guys know that I'm an equal opportunity offender when it comes to camera brands. I joke about it, but hey, you know, they're all good. So by all means, you know, if you know of any, please do share, okay? And let's see here. Whoops, wrong button again. One more try here. Contran, how do you communicate posing instructions to models? I try to mimic what I want them to do, but I have trouble when I expect them to mirror my actions. When I turn to my left, they inevitably turn to their left, which means that they always face the wrong direction. Of course, this is minor and easy to correct once, but when it's repeated several times, it makes for an awkward session. So how do you pose your models? Wow. Okay, so first of all, great question. Secondly, that's something that a lot of people struggle with. So there's a couple layers to this, right? I will show you guys in a very detailed way in a moment. I'm going to use you as my subject, and I will show you essentially how I direct a model that way. Understand that what you need to do is take what I'm going to show you, and number one, just like anything else in photography, it's going to require a little practice on your part. Number two, understand that you're not Joe. And that's not an insult. I just mean we all speak a little differently. We all communicate a little differently. Hopefully, most of you talk slower than I do, okay? But no different than, like, you know, Peter Hurley has his Hurleyisms. Well, just imagine if, you know, I was out there telling people shebang and all that, like, I'd look like an idiot, right? But here's this guy who, you know, has got like a larger than life personality. He's like 6'5" or 6'6", booming voice. It works for him. So you have to take this concept and you have to adapt it for you. But I mentioned the practice part. There's two reasons you have to practice it. Reason number one, to be consistent and so that you turn it into a habit, meaning you do it all the time. Reason number 2, I always give my directions based on my subjects or my models, left and right. That takes practice. So here's what I would like you guys to do. If you are holding your phone, or if you're watching a computer or watching your tablet, hold it in front of you and hold it at a decent range. And I want you to imagine that you are my portrait subject. And we're gonna do one quick little task here, but then I'm gonna break it down for you. Okay, so let's go ahead and shoot. So what I would like you to do is just a tiny little bit. I wanna have you turn your head to your left. Oh, that's awesome, perfect, right there. Now, again, just a tiny little bit. We're gonna do a little tilt of your head also to your left. Cool, now, stay right there. That's awesome. So, next thing is your chin, watch me. What I want you to do, like this much, that's all. I'd like you to just push that chin forward, but I need you to hold it, okay? So now, that's great. Bring the chin down a little bit, good. Keep that tilt, great. Now, by the way, that chin thing, I know that feels a little awkward, but the reason I'm having you do that, just that little push, I know it doesn't seem like much, but it brings out that great definition of your jawline. You're gonna love the way it looks. Okay, now, let's break down what you just saw. So the first thing that I did, which is not a normal thing to do, is I went, who comes up and kind of puts their finger in your face, right? So right away, that draws your subject's attention. So I make sure that that hand comes out in front of the camera. If the camera's on a tripod, whatever, now the person's paying attention to your hand, because who does that, right? And let's face it, I'd rather have them watch my hand than watch this, right? So now I've got their attention. So now as I'm talking very slowly, I'm saying just a tiny little bit, drawing their attention in. We're going to go ahead and we're going to turn your face. They still don't know where. I'm leaving the direction to the very end. And then I say, to your left, and I move my finger ever so slightly. Now, because I've got their attention, they're going to make a small move. If you just say to a person, turn your face to the left, like, no telling where they go, right? It's gonna be big. I want it small, I wanna control it. And now, I'm gonna further that, because now they've turned to the left, but I want a little tilt, right? So, just a tiny little bit. Also, this time, we're gonna tilt your head also to the left, right? So I've got control, I've got their attention. Now the other thing I showed you, when I do the little chin push, which is very common, a lot of you know the chin push, here's the thing you have to remember. If you just say to somebody, just like I had you do it, do me a favor, just push your chin forward and hold that there. That feels awkward. Now, who gets in front of a camera because they want an awkward picture? Well, except for me on my TogChat covers. But other than that, when somebody gets in front of your camera, they don't want to look awkward. They want to look great. They want to look natural and relaxed. So if you're going to ask someone to do something that you know feels awkward, or maybe they're afraid it looks awkward, you need to take a moment and explain it. Because by explaining it, by telling them, listen, that little chin push, it brings out the definition of your jawline, and I love your jawline, but I want to make sure we don't lose it. Now, you have eliminated any concerns that that subject has about looking awkward, and what you've done is you've made them a collaborator in what you're doing. Mark Dolce Photography, thank you so much for noticing that. He just typed, you're explaining the why, and that's so important. Gang, it is all about the why. That's why my mission, the hows and the whys, right? Bruno, thank you so much. I appreciate the super chat, thank you. So anytime you're giving your subject some kind of a direction like that, you have to take a moment and you have to explain it. So here, I'll give you another example. Let me just grab a stool really quick. So I'm going to be a little bit out of the light, but you'll be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm sitting on a stool now, and it's very common when I'm shooting a portrait, especially if it's not a model, the moment I pick up my camera to take the picture, the person is going to sit up, right? Now, I can't speak for those of you in Europe, but why does that happen? Well, here in the United States, when you're in grade school, every year in the fall, like right around, now, actually, when school starts, the photographers come out and they take your school pictures. And you sit on a box, you sit on a stool, and the first thing they tell you is, sit up straight, hold it, tilt your head, boom, and that's the picture, right? So as children, we learn when you're getting your picture taken, sit up straight because you'll look better. So now, as an adult, if somebody is sitting on my posing stool and they sit up straight, I don't want that because, and again, if you're sitting, I want you to try this. While you're sitting there, sit up straight, like literally lift that rib cage and sit up straight, but I want you to hold it for about 30 seconds. After about 30 seconds, you will start to notice, number one, you're getting fatigued. Number two, you'll notice that your shoulders are starting to lift up like mine because you're actually using your shoulders to lift your rib cage up. And you'll be able to feel the muscles in your neck tightening. So what I tell my subjects to do is stay relaxed. And here's how I'll explain it. So I'm standing, I will tell my subject, no, go ahead. Just relax, not too relaxed, but stay relaxed. And then the very next sentence is, I'm shooting you from the bust up. So as long as you stay relaxed, it's going to present a much nicer, much calmer body language, and you won't have to work as hard. So I just don't want you to slouch, but by all means, please stay relaxed so we don't see that tension. By taking the time to give them the why and explain that, I have now eliminated any concerns they have about bad posture because their whole life they've been taught you're supposed to sit up. And I've made them a collaborator in what I'm doing. And what I'm also doing by explaining those things, I'm sounding kind of smart and I'm earning their trust. That's why that is important. Eric, thank you so much, man. I appreciate the super chat. Seriously, thank you. Okay? All right. Going back to Gontran, sorry. Let me get that back on the screen here. Gontran, the big thing is you've got the right idea by showing them, okay? But what you should be doing at the same time that you're doing that turn, you should be saying, okay, you know what I want you to do is just a little bit. I want you to turn to your left, okay? And then, whether it's going to be lift the leg, whatever you're going to do, you should go ahead and use the actual directions. So the bottom line, gang, takes some practice, right? It takes effort. It takes a little while to get used to it. And, I'm not going to brag, but again, this is what you want to work towards. When I'm in the studio working, keep in mind, I've got a makeup artist with me. So a normal conversation will be to say to my subject, just a tiny little bit, I want you to turn your head to your left. And then if I notice on my subject's left side, there's frizzy hair, I'm going to turn around to my makeup artist and say, do me a favor, camera right, knock out that frizz. Because my makeup artist is back here. So I'm going to give them the direction based on their left or right, which is my left or right. And if for some reason the makeup artist is already standing alongside the model or behind the model, if I say camera left or camera right, it's much easier for them to understand where I'm talking about in terms of what they need to do, right? So that's the whole idea behind that. So again, takes practice. That's honestly, there's no shortcuts to it. Again, it takes practice. But Gontran, you've got the right idea by demonstrating it, right? That is very important. And I try to demonstrate whenever possible, okay? All right. Todd Allen, Olympus now has a program where you can borrow gear at no cost. Not really, but I'll explain. You're not wrong, but you're not entirely right. So let's get that squared away. Look for a brick and mortar store near you. I'm headed out to Mike's Camera in Denver to look into this program. I shot with Olympus before, but that was a few years ago. Many developments since then, and I'm curious now more than ever since the 4:3 format is so much more affordable than the touted full frame. A switch may be forthcoming. So number one, very cool about the potential switch. I'm glad to hear about another Olympus curious person. So Olympus, let me be clear though, Olympus does not have a formal program for borrowing a camera, right? So I don't want everybody like rushing out to the stores. What happens, Todd, and this is what's happening in your store, the sales rep that covers your store, or actually the technical sales rep, that is their title, they usually have a couple kits worth of gear that they can leave with the dealers to help the dealers close sales by allowing people to borrow them. It's not a formal program like they have in the UK. The UK does have kind of a formal program where you can check out a camera for like a weekend and try it out. So absolutely nothing wrong for any of you that are curious. And by the way, all the brands do stuff similar to this. So now don't go rushing out to your dealer and saying, hey, I want a Sony for the weekend. I can't promise you it's going to be there, right? But I'm just saying, if your dealer really has good relationships with the manufacturers, and if your dealer is convinced that you are a good customer and potentially going to make a large purchase, your dealer does have some leverage to get a hold of a piece of gear and let you borrow it or try it out. And remember, gang, especially if you're in the United States, which Todd is, you can rent ridiculously cheap, like crazy cheap. Lensrentals.com, borrowlenses.com, I actually believe they're the same company now. I think they've merged, but they still keep the two names. You can rent really, really, really inexpensively. So, and I'm a big fan. Never purchase a camera because of some idiot on YouTube. Ever. That applies to me. If I make you Olympus curious, you go out and test the camera. At a bare minimum, walk into a camera store, put it in your hands. Take a secure digital card with you when you go to the store. Put the camera in your hands, try it out, take some pictures in the store or whatever, and then go home. Take a look at the files. Think about your experience. And then if you're still feeling really good about it, hell yes, go back and buy the camera, okay? But please, do not make a camera purchase because of some bozo on YouTube. Worst idea ever. And the simple reason is, it doesn't matter about all the specs. It doesn't matter about the megapixels. It doesn't matter about sensor size. It doesn't matter if it does a high-speed sync. It doesn't matter about what lenses are available. What matters, the reason why I'm telling you to do this, it's about the ergonomics. How does that camera feel in your hand? Is it comfortable? Super, super important. Guys, that's why I stuck with Nikon for all those years when I was very unhappy. And I'm not, this is not a diss Nikon thing. I'm just saying, I wanted mirrorless. They didn't have it, right? So that's why I didn't like the ergonomics. I tried Sony, you guys know that. And I don't like the Sony ergonomics. Doesn't make it a bad camera. It just makes it not right for me. That's the key, all right? So let's see here. Next question I got up here. I'm going to work backwards on these, so we will try to get to everybody. Aaron Edwards, would you recommend approaching a college or university to work with a makeup artist, or would you go with someone qualified? You know what, Aaron? I have 2 videos on my YouTube channel. Let me bring these up here, and I'll get you guys the link for them. I talk about, number 1, finding a makeup artist, and I talk about working with a makeup artist. So I'm going to type in the little magnifying glass on my channel, makeup artist, and I'll get you the links to these 2 videos. I would encourage you to watch them, okay? This one is 7 tips for working with a makeup artist, okay? And let's see here. Whoops. Let's try that again and see if I can actually get the link. There we go. That's the first one. And then the next one is 6 reasons you should work with a makeup artist. So since I'm on a short night tonight, I'm not going to go into great detail, but I will tell you this. There's nothing wrong with working with an inexperienced makeup artist if, here's the big if you see talent, if you are able to communicate. In other words, if you get along with this person, because ultimately you're going to need to build a working relationship, a collaboration relationship with this person. So you could have the most talented makeup artist in the world, but if you don't hit it off with them and if you can't communicate with them, they're not going to be of much help to you, right? Check out those 2 videos. I promise you, you will find lots of tips in there that will help you out and kind of give you a better sense of how to maybe go about that, okay? Steve Wilking, I purchased my camera because of an idiot on YouTube. You call me an idiot, man? Best advice Joe ever gave me, I love it. However, I did research it, yeah, and that's the key. I mean, it really is. I'm thrilled when I hear, and obviously Olympus is thrilled when they hear that, people bought cameras because of me. But you guys know I'm not selling out. Yes, I love Olympus because they send me around the country to teach. I don't want anybody buying a camera just because I said so, ever. Not the reason to do it, okay? So Kelvin Fan, new to this YouTube live thing. What is Super Chat? So Super Chat, Kelvin, is a way that you can toss in a couple bucks and say, hey, Joe, I appreciate what you do. But before you do it, seriously, so let me point out a couple things to you guys. Because I'm not going to do a panhandling thing, but I want to be honest. So down in the bottom left-hand corner of the chat window, there's a little dollar sign. So you can click on that, and it allows you, you have to give Google a credit card, or maybe, I'm not sure if you can do PayPal, but you have to give Google a credit card, and you make the donation, and at the same time you can ask a question or just, say, hey, thank you, whatever. Or up at the top of the screen here, this side, right there. Before you give me a super chat, if you've never done it before, go take a look at TogKnowledge.com when we get off the air tonight. For as little as $2 a month, you can participate in that community. And for as little as $5 a month, you can participate in our weekly Zoom chats. The Zoom chats, if you're not familiar with what Zoom is, it's kind of like Skype, but you can have a whole room full of people interacting at once via webcams. It's actually really nice. So every Friday night, we do Zoom meetings, and we help people plan photo shoots. We review people's pictures. We really get into the nitty-gritty of it. So I obviously appreciate anybody wanting to offer some support. But I would encourage you, maybe take a look at that, because it may be a better use for your money. But regardless, as I have always promised, my content on YouTube will always remain free, no matter what I do. And yes, videos, they'll be back, don't worry, but I'm not going to charge money for what I do on YouTube. So, car photography. I've got a haunted house shoot, and the owner wants a reaction shot. I got a MyOps trigger to help trigger the camera at the right time and trigger a flash. Do you have any tips for this kind of shoot? So like you want to hide the camera? Well, so the one thing I would try to make sure of car photography is I'm curious about what the intended use of these photos are. So if this is meant to be for advertising, you should make sure that the owner of the haunted house is intending to get releases before they put those pictures in advertising. Because if somebody just shows up and you get a picture of them wetting their pants because they're freaked out of their mind, and it winds up in an ad or on social media, you could be on the hook if this person is litigious about things, right? I mean, the idea of using a MyOps trigger and that kind of stuff, you could do that. The challenge you're going to have that with, you're going to have to set it to be sound activated, I would assume. That being the case, if the character yells or screams, that's potentially going to trigger the flash, not the response from the person. You may almost be better off, and it all depends on how you're able to set your gear up. If you can set your gear up in a way that, so I see, car just out of here. It's going to be for resale that night. So yeah, I mean, the MyOps is one way to do it, but if you're going to be there the whole evening, what you might actually want to do, and it might be worth your while if you think that there's actually money in this, to hire somebody to help you, but have the camera set up and work with live view turned on. And that way, you put on the live boost, you set the camera up on live view, and you're actually able to photograph the response as it happens. It's going to be kind of hard to completely automate it and always get the best reaction. Unless, now I know with MyOps you can work with timing. I've never used one, but I've read about them. You can work with the timing. So if you can set the MyOps up with enough of a delay that the character is always the one that's going to trigger it, then you could build in a delay that would, better be timed for the response of the person. So honestly, that's what I would recommend. I've never done that kind of a gig, but I think those would be my concerns, and that would be the stuff that I think you would need to consider. And certainly, you're going to need to do some testing, right? So don't wait until the first night when you're ready to try and start selling stuff to see if it works. You're going to need to get in there while they're doing their rehearsals and their run-throughs. And do your practice then, okay? Kiz, who is your biggest competitor in your local area? I don't really have a competitor, and so for two reasons though. So there's a great little lesson here. I don't have a competitor because I'm not taking clients at this point. So I'm not competing with anybody. I teach full time. I travel, I teach. I do workshops, I do consultations, and I love what I do. I'm not a kid anymore, so it's kind of nice to be able to do this. I get to shoot what I want when I want, and I don't mean to sound cocky about that, but I've earned that, and I'm happy about that. However, I do want to point something out to you. Aside from my early career when I was a newspaper photographer, that was different. But aside from that, I've never had a competitor, ever. I've never worried about a competitor. I've never thought of other photographers as competitors because they are not competitors. No other photographer shoots the way I shoot. No different than I don't shoot the way they shoot. Their client is not my client, period. And if you're going to be in business as a photographer, I don't care if you're doing weddings, portraits, commercial advertising, doesn't matter what it is. You win some, you lose some. Not everyone is your client. It's not a land grab where like, I've got to have the most clients, all the clients. No. So, I mean, and I promise you, that is not like some cocky statement like, oh, I was better than everybody else. God, no. But I've never had a competitor. All that does is cause stress. It's too bad you can't come to Pixel Fest on Friday. I'll be talking about that in my keynote talk. But yeah, I've never had a competitor. Photography is not a competition. As I say in my videos, it's a passion to be shared. Share it. And if you work hard, and if you set yourself apart so that people see the value in what you do, you won't have competition. You will find your customers. So yeah, but at this point, I don't really have competitors in that regard, okay? Let's see, Photo Mix Media. Similar question to the previous one. During a wedding, how can I deal with using a speed light and inside of temples that have huge mosaic windows? And then he goes on to add here, my camera's auto white balance is also off because of that. Also, the background of each photo looks like a rainbow. How can I fix it? Exactly the same way I described. Set your ambient light first, and then set your flash. Don't use auto white balance, right? And guys, come on. I'm sorry, but auto is the 4-letter word for forget about it, right? I mean, it just doesn't work. I'll use Joe McNally as an example, right? Joe McNally published a book. Joe McNally is a Nikon ambassador, shot for National Geographic, yada, yada, yada. Amazing photographer. He published a book a bunch of years back, probably 10 or 15 years ago now. It was called Hot Shoe Diaries. And it basically was a brilliant marketing piece for the Nikon CLS flash system. And Joe shoots in aperture priority automatic for probably 90 to 95% of what he does. But if you go and you read through that book, or you don't have to buy the book, you can watch any of his YouTube videos where he's using Nikon flashes and listen to how he breaks the shot down. He understands how that flash works and will react better than the flash does. So yes, he'll shoot on aperture priority, but he'll do that to solve a problem after he has already thought the entire shoot through manually in his mind. So the problem that you have with your temples that you're talking about and the mosaic windows, etc., the camera's seeing all that different color. It doesn't know that there's a person in there. It just sees all the different color. So it doesn't know that it's got a white balance on the person. So in a situation like that, you should be white balancing for your key light, which is your flash. So you're either going to go with the flash white balance, or you could go with daylight white balance, or go back to your manual for your flash, see what color temperature it is, probably 5600 K, and then set your Kelvin degrees at 5600 K. That would be the best way to do it, because it's not going to matter if the color temperature is off a little bit for the mosaic windows. You want the color temperature on your subjects to be correct. That's the important part, right? So ambient first, flash second, but you're going to set your color temperature based on your flash. That's very important, okay? All right, hope that helps. Let's see here. Next up, Bruno, I saw your super chat before. He said, I'd love to contribute more to demonstrate how grateful I am for your work. I live in Brazil. Believe me, Bruno, it's never about how much, and I appreciate your being here. I appreciate the thought. I'm glad it's helping, and believe me, knowing that it helps, honestly, that's why I do this. So I'm thrilled. Thank you, okay? So let's see here. Robert Julian, how often do you use that LED star-shaped light over, whoops, this, over your left shoulder? See, I know my right from my left. I'm looking at it. That's the problem. Yeah, you know, in a picture, I've used it already, so I'll probably not use it again for quite a long time in a picture. To light a picture, I play around with it every so often, but more often than not, I'll actually use it to light something I'm doing on YouTube. Like I use it for video light. So that's one of the specular lights. It's here. I'll type it in here so you guys can see how it's spelled. Specular, it's made by Spiffy Gear. They're basically component piece. They're awesome. I mean, they're really, really awesome. Great for video and great for stills, but you can set them up in octagons, in squares, in panels. Basically, it's all about how you configure them based on the connectors that they come with. So I really love them. They're like awesome. But, you know, using it in the shot, it's kind of like using a ring light in the sense that it's got a very distinct catch light. So it's kind of, I hate to use the word gimmick because gimmick sounds bad. So I don't mean it in a bad way, but I wouldn't want 15 pictures that have that same kind of catch light, right? Because then it kind of becomes a big feature of it, you know, in that sense, okay? Guy Wright mentioned, do you still use that light blaster thing? I do still use that light blaster thing, which is also made by Spiffy Gear, the same people that make Specular. Light blaster, guys, if you don't know what it is, it allows you to put a lens on the front of a speed light or like a Godox 8200, and you can insert color transparencies or even little grid cutouts and project them onto a background. So you can create all kinds of interesting backgrounds. I have a video about it here. Let me, real quick here, I'll find the video and I'll share it with you guys. The light blaster is actually, it's really cool. And so by default, it has a Canon mount on it. They do offer an adapter for Nikon. So obviously when I was using Nikon lenses, that was easy. Now that I got rid of all my Nikons and I use Olympus, literally what I did is for $46 or $47, I went to Amazon and I bought one of those Yongnuo manual focus 50mm lenses for a Canon mount. And that's the lens that I use on it. Works out awesome. So yeah, they're a lot of fun. It's basically allowing you to do a composite background, but do it in camera, in real time, while you're doing the shoot, okay? So I put the link for that video in there if you guys want to check it out. If you don't know what the light blaster is, you know, go right ahead, okay? So let's see here. Let's see, scrolling back up, I just want to make sure I know I missed some stuff up in the beginning. Kelvin here. Oh, wait a minute, that was a recommendation. So here, sorry, let me get the context on this. Scroll back up. Mike Zupanak. Oh, Mike, you're coming to Pixel Photo Fest. Awesome. Looking forward to taking 2 of my classes plus the photo walk. Cool. Mike, I hope you're going to be at the keynote Friday morning. Be there. Don't miss the keynote. And besides, I have treats for everybody. So don't miss the keynote. I know it's early. So, you know, get up, have some breakfast, go to Starbucks, get your coffee, go pee, and show up. 8:30 a.m. Friday morning, okay? You want to be there, all right? All right, scrolling on up here. See if I missed anything else up at the beginning. Let's see, Duke. I know you don't have much on gear, but could you give me some suggestions of some good ball heads that won't break the bank? I have a KNF tripod, and I mostly use like a Nikon D300. Yeah, you know what, Duke? Actually, I can. Let me see if I have one here. I might have one sitting right here. Is this one of them? Well, okay, so this one's a little more expensive. This is a Vanguard. This is an SBH 50, but it's not like super expensive. These are much more, there it is. These are much more reasonable than like the Acrotech ball heads that I use, right? Or even like a Manfrotto ball head. So check that one out. Or I also use, and the worst part is I'm not sure where the other one is right now. Let me see if I can find it really quick. If I can't, I will just tell you about it. Nope, I can't find it. It is probably in my equipment case, ready to go to Cleveland. But there is this one that is a Benrose. This one's a little tiny, but this would handle your D300 or D3300? D300, yeah, it would handle that. And then one other one that I use, and I apologize, Duke, I can't access it right at the moment, but it's a brand called Sinos. I am really irritated that I cannot find one because I know I've got one of them in use here, but it is not jumping out at me at the moment. So I apologize. But if you're a member of my Facebook group, Duke, join my Facebook group, post this question in there about the ball heads, and I will share with you an Amazon link to one that's actually a little bigger than this, almost the same size as this. Certainly more than strong enough for your D300 and a bigger lens, okay? And it's very, very reasonably priced, okay? Now, I will tell you in general, right? That 70 to 200, if you've got the tripod foot, that would be fine. Don't put a camera body with a 70 to 200 hanging off the front with the tripod, especially a ball head, mounted into the camera body. It's just way too much weight in the front. You're gonna have a really hard time getting any ball head to handle that properly. So as long as you've got the tripod foot on the lens, you should be fine with that, okay? Mark Lipton, can I recommend any good photo podcasters based in Canada, particularly East Canada, and preferably not focused on here? Mark, I'm sorry, I honestly have none. Yeah, I really don't know. What I would do is literally just you know, go to like Spotify or go to iTunes, hit the podcast, type in photography, and then, you know, just kind of scroll through, look where they are. But I apologize, I don't know of any off the top of my head. So, Steve L, will you be presenting at Photo Plus? I will be. So Photo Plus is coming up the end of October, right? New York. Show's a little different this year, gang. They got rid of the education track. There are no classes at Photo Plus this year. However, the good news is manufacturers, well, all the camera manufacturers will have stages, etc. So I will be presenting on the Olympus stage. In fact, I can tell you already, as the plan stands now, I'll be presenting for a full hour. So normally when you do these presentations, they're only like 30 minutes tops. They're giving me a full hour all 3 days at 12:30. So 12:30 p.m. until 1:30 p.m. I'll be doing a demo on the Olympus stage. And I'm still waiting to hear back from the fire marshal, true story, to see if I can get permission to do what I would like to do. The Olympus booth is going to be a lot different than it was last year at Photo Plus. That's all I can tell you. But I am hoping to be able to work with some of the unique features of this year's booth. But I have to make sure that it's approved by the fire hazard and the trade show. But either way, yes, I'll be doing a demo. And then Steve, on Thursday morning at Photo Plus, so opening day, I will be doing a photo walk, street fashion photo walk that morning. Exact time, I'm not sure. I have a feeling it'll probably be like 8:30 or 9 o'clock. But certainly keep an eye on, you know, all the marketing for the show coming up. But yeah, I will be at Photo Plus, and I hope to see as many of you there as possible. Okay. Gord Smith, I'm shooting a ceremony in October. It will be in a winery, and the dress theme is black. Ooh, any suggestions for lighting? Bounce, soft? Nah, I mean, Gord, my best suggestion for lighting is your style, however you like the style. How do you normally shoot events in that sense? I never worry about whether or not a subject's black, white, whatever, or if the material's black, white. If you're exposing properly, it's not an issue, right? Knowing that it's a black dress theme, I would be more concerned about trying to make sure that you have some detail in the background so that your subject is separated from the background. That's really the big thing. But in terms of, do you do bounce, soft, you know, softbox, whatever, do what you normally do. Don't make it any more difficult. Pay more attention to your backgrounds. If you have natural separation from the background, in other words, something that makes that dress stand out, that's going to make your life a whole lot easier than trying to do it with lighting at an event, right? That's the key there, okay? All right. Let's see, Madison County Sound Labs. What would be the best 2 lenses or focal lengths that you could have for beginning wedding photography? Well, if you're only going to take 2, I would say right out of the box, go with zoom lenses. I'll give you full-length focal lengths. I don't know. Sorry, I don't recall what you shoot, but so I'm going to make a big jump here and assume that it's full frame. I would probably try to go with like a 24 to 70, 2.8, and then a 70 to 200, 2.8. With those 2 lenses, you can cover pretty much like anything. If you're an Olympus shooter like me, you're shooting Micro Four Third, I would probably take the 12 to 40. That would be my wide lens, or well, actually, so if it were me, I would take the 7 to 14. But I think for most people, probably the 12 to 40 would be a good choice, and then the 40 to 150 would be a good choice. Okay. All right. Let's see. Ajax, how are we doing, Ajax? He says, you show plenty of detailed diagrams about your lighting setup. As a starting point, what height do you generally set your key light above the eyes of your subject? It's never about an actual height, Ajax. Really what it is I like to have at least two-thirds of my modifier, at least, above my subject. Right? Or I should say, sorry, let me try that again. I like to have 2/3 of my modifier above my subject's eyes. So depending on how tall my subject is or sitting, whatever, that's really where I'm going to wind up placing things, right? A rookie mistake that a lot of people make, they get the nice big modifier and it's like, okay, so let's put the person's face in the center. So the modifier's here, the person's face is there, but that means there's still a lot of light coming from below. Right? So I want at least 2/3 of that light above. That way the majority of my light is coming from above, which is where our brains expect to see the light coming from, which is where we want the shadows to be, etc. So that would be my approach for that. Okay? All right. And let's see here. I think I'm good all the way back in the beginning. Thomas, thank you for the super chat, man. So what do we got here? Let me get way back here. There we go. When I use colored gels for the background, I get not the color, instead it's white. And when I turn the power down, I see the gray, but it's not colored. So Thomas, first things first, give me an answer here about the background itself. What color is the background before you put the gels on? Is it white? Is it gray? Is it black? So let me know that one, Thomas. Type away, and as soon as I get your answer, I will come back and I'll grab that. We got like 7 minutes here, so I can get it in, okay? German, I have an old Godox QT602. Wow, I'll be honest, I don't even know what that is. Is there any option to use it outdoors, like a portable battery that you can recommend? Oh, I see, okay. So if it works on AC power, you might want to look at something like a Paul C. Buff Vagabond, or Photogenic also makes one, and I apologize, I don't remember what they call it, but it's a lithium battery that you can plug AC into. Now, German, I don't know what country you're in, so there may also be a difference in the voltage in that. That could be a problem. But essentially, you want to look for a lithium battery, that will allow you to plug into. And then in theory, you could take any flash outdoors, right? There's kind of nothing to stop you there. So Thomas is telling me that his background is white or gray. So when you use the color gels for the background, you don't get the color, instead it's white. So I'm going to work with the gray, Thomas, right? Because I'll tell you right out of the box, if you're trying to use color, don't use the white. Can you use white? Yes. Do you have to be much more careful, and do you need a much more thorough understanding of inverse square law? Oh, hell yeah. Right? So work with gray. So on the gray background, if you're putting a colored gel on and it's turning up white, that means your flash is too powerful. Turn the flash down. Real simple, okay? If you turn the power down and you're seeing gray, then you're turning it down too far. The other factor that comes into play here, if your subject is too close to the background, then your key light is lighting the background. So understand that if you're going to try and color the background, you need to separate the subject from the background so that you're not lighting the background with your key light, and then put the gels on it. I have a video here. Hang on. Let me find it. I have a background about why my favorite color background, or excuse me, I have a video about why my favorite background color is gray, and I also talk about lighting it in this video. So I would encourage you, there you go, watch that video that I just put in there. It's called the best color photography background for portraits is gray, okay? That will help you out a lot, okay? Ajax has a follow-up here. He said, the reason I asked is because you have such amazing pop on your subject's face, and the catch lights are always shebang. My catch lights are never shebang, Ajax. Yeah, I mean, I pay attention to, you know, the catch light to make sure the light's not too high. There's nothing wrong with having a light really, really high, but obviously there's always trade-offs and everything, right? Generally speaking, if I've got a third of my modifier below my subject's eyes, I'm gonna have a nice catch light. But that's something that you should be looking at. And in fact, here, I'll give all of you a little tip. Let me grab one of these. This is a tip that I show off a lot when I do my demos and that. Now, please don't become like anal about this. Like, really don't. Just make it something that you keep an eye on and you look for. But if you really want some practice and you want to learn about how our catch light's going to look, go to Amazon and get yourself some black marbles, right? So just, you type in Amazon black marbles. And then what you do, set up your lighting, especially if you have a mannequin. This is great. Set up your lighting, take the marble, stick it in your hand like so, and then take a test shot. And you will be able to see exactly where the catch light's going to be. You want to make sure that it's slightly recessed. Let's see if we can get it to focus there. Slightly recessed, whoops, yeah, slightly recessed so that you're going to get kind of the natural effect of what it would be like, with your eyeball underneath an eyelid, right? But that's going to show you how your catch light is going to appear because the black marble is like a mirror. So that's one way that, if you're struggling with that a little bit, you can use that in practice to get a little better sense so that then when you get your subject in front of the camera, you've got a little bit more confidence in terms of how that's going to work out. Okay? All right. Eric Arnold. Whoops. There it is. What lens or lenses do you recommend taking on the photo walk with you Saturday? All of them. No, I'm kidding. Short to medium length telephotos. That would be the key. Maybe you want to bring a wide angle just to do some artsy stuff along the way, or to be able to actually record some images to show the setting that we're working in so that when you go back and you look at them later, that will help you. Yeah, short to medium length telephotos, just like you would for portraits. That would be the ideal setup. Okay? All right. Marcelino. It was great meeting you at Looking Glass. You were at Looking Glass on Saturday. Awesome. I had a blast. I hope you did. It was actually really fun. I'm just kind of bummed I didn't get to spend a little bit more time in the Bay Area. But yeah, and folks, I got to tell you, like, obviously, I talk about this all the time, so I'm not offending anyone here. Local camera retailers are so important everywhere. Please support your local camera retailers. We need them. Thomas, thank you so much for the super chat. I'll get to your question in just a sec. Local camera retailers are super, super, super important. So believe me, if they're in business today and they're surviving, they're doing a lot of really cool stuff and a lot of really good stuff. But I got to tell you, gang, Looking Glass Photo, this was my first time there. Hands down, the coolest looking camera store I have ever been in. Like, just freaking awesome. Now, so Marcelino, hopefully you will not find this offensive, but I'm from back east. So walking into the store, it's got like a total hipster vibe to it. But man, it is awesome. Everybody's like super nice, super laid back. It was a great time. So Marcelino, it was definitely great to meet you. Okay. All right. Let's see. Russ Dixon, I need to light a white background 3 meters by 5 meters. You only have an 8200 and the light has to be to one side of a pole dancer. Doesn't have to be perfect. What modifier would you suggest to do the best job? Russ, that might be the perfect example with an 8200 to try and get a big strip box. If you could get yourself like a 4-foot strip box, and that would actually be one of those situations where you might want to put a grid on it. That's going to help control the light and get it where you need it a little bit better. If you can't do that and you can only work with the 8200 and no modifiers, make sure the 8200 is on its side. So the Fresnel, use the Fresnel head, the one that looks like a speed light, and make sure it's vertical. But ideally, that would be a perfect scenario for a strip box, and then use the bare bulb inside the strip box. That's what you want to do. Okay. All right, Thomas had another question here. How much space, whoops, it didn't load. There we go, let's try it again. How much space do you need to shoot half body shots? You know, Thomas, that depends on so many things like full frame, micro four thirds, what focal length lenses do you have? Ideally, to do half body shots, I mean, you could do half body shots really in pretty much the same amount of space that you're going to do a portrait. The real variable is like you're running into a problem where you want to be able to light your background independently. So that's the part that's requiring you have more space. Not the fact that you want to do a half body shot, it's the fact that you want to light the background independently. So, you know, if you're working with a full, okay, it says here you're working with a full frame 85 millimeter. I mean, ideally, you want to have at least 15 feet of running room, at least. 20 feet would be better. So, you know, from the camera, like your back to the background, 15 to 20 feet is going to be kind of a minimum in that sense for you to be able to have lots of playroom for what you can do with your lighting. Okay? All right, gang. So, 7 o'clock, 7:02. So you all kind of get off lucky tonight because I'm going to bail on you, which means that you only owe me 120 minutes next week instead of 180, right? But whatever you do, get out there and practice. So for some of you, I will see you maybe tomorrow night if you're coming to the opening event that's put on by Cleveland Creates, which I hope you will. I'll see you tomorrow night in Cleveland. But if not, I hope to see you Friday morning for my keynote. And then for those of you that can't make it to Pixel Photo Fest, if you're in Charlotte, North Carolina, I'm going to be at Biggs Camera in Charlotte, North Carolina on September 25th for a full day event there. I'll be doing 2 different talks, one in the morning, one in the afternoon is a photo walk. We're going to have some ballet dancers. It'll be pretty cool. So I definitely encourage you to try and make it out for that. But seriously, gang, as always, thank you so much. I sincerely appreciate all of you. I had a lot of fun tonight with really, really good questions. I think we covered some really great stuff. So you know the drill, gang. Okay, get out there, take some pictures, and whatever you do, please remember.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now, pick up that camera and shoot something because your best shot is your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.